The salvage station Meridian 7 floated in the dark between star systems. It was huge, bigger than most cities, and served as a meeting place for dozens of alien species. Ships came and went every hour, bringing cargo, travelers, and stories from across the galaxy. Walked through the main corridor with his toolbox in one hand and a half-empty bottle of cheap station beer in the other. He was 28 years old, with messy black hair and oil stains on his jumpsuit. This was his third day working at Meridian 7, and he was still getting used to seeing so many different kinds of aliens. Beside him walked another human engineer who had been at the station for 2 years. She was organized and careful, the opposite of in almost every way. She carried a data pad and kept checking their schedule. "You need to stop drinking on shift," said, not for the first time that day. "It's just beer," replied. "Besides, I work better when I'm relaxed." Sighed but didn't argue further. She had learned that arguing with was usually pointless. He did things his own way, and somehow, things usually worked out. They were on their way to fix a cooling system in Section 7 when suggested they take a shortcut through the museum level. Had heard about the museum but hadn't visited it yet. The station kept various artifacts from different civilizations there, things that were old or rare or both. The museum was quiet and dimly lit. Glass cases held strange objects that didn't recognize. Some glowed softly. Others looked like weapons or tools. Walked quickly, clearly just using this as a hallway, but slowed down to look at everything. Then he saw it. At the far end of the museum hall stood something massive. It was twice the size of the other displays, cordoned off with energy barriers and warning signs in multiple languages. Inside a crystalline pod that looked like frozen water stood a creature unlike anything had ever seen. It was huge, at least 8 feet tall, with 4 arms and an armored body that seemed part flesh and part metal. Its skin was a deep blue-gray color, and its face was angular and severe. It looked like a warrior, even in stillness. The creature's eyes were closed, and it didn't move at all. "What is that?" asked, walking closer. Noticed he had stopped and came back. "Oh, that's the Guardian. I think his name is. He's been frozen for over 1,000 years." "Frozen? Why?" "Stasis pod," explained, reading from her data pad. "He's the last of his species, though. They were warriors from an ancient war. He got trapped in that thing and no one can get him out." Moved closer, studying the pod. It hummed with a low, steady sound. Energy patterns moved across its surface like slow lightning. "What do you mean no one can get him out?" "Every major civilization has tried," said. Though, even the Unity Council. They've had their best scientists work on it for centuries. The technology is from a dead civilization. No one understands it well enough to safely open it." "How many have tried?" 127 attempts over 1,300 years. 3 attempts caused explosions that killed the scientists. After that, most species declared it impossible and stopped trying. Now he's just a museum piece. Finished his beer and set the bottle down on a nearby bench. He walked right up to the energy barrier, ignoring the warning signs. An alien guard, some kind of reptilian creature with purple scales, started to move toward him, but waved the guard off. "Don't touch anything," she warned. He wasn't touching anything yet. He was just looking, his eyes moving across the pod's surface, studying the control panel at its base, examining the way the energy flowed through the crystalline structure. "Have they tried turning it off and on again?" asked. Stared at him. "What?" "You know, like when something's frozen or stuck. You cut the power, wait a bit, then restart it. Basic troubleshooting." "This isn't a broken refrigerator. This is technology from a civilization that died out thousands of years ago. It's quantum-locked with fail-safes that no one understands. You can't just—" "But have they tried it?" interrupted. Before could answer, a voice spoke from behind them. "No, they have not." Both humans turned to see an approaching. They were tall and thin with pale blue skin and large dark eyes. This one wore the uniform of a station commander. His name badge read. "Commander," said quickly, standing, "we were just passing through. My colleague didn't mean any disrespect." Waved a long-fingered hand. "I take no offense. I am curious about your friend's question, though. You ask why no one has simply turned it off and on again." "Yeah," said. "I mean, I fix stuff all the time. Ships, engines, life support systems. When something's stuck in a loop or frozen up, sometimes the simplest solution works best." "This is not a ship's engine," said, but his tone wasn't harsh. "The stasis technology involves quantum entanglement and temporal displacement. The pod is generating its own power from zero-point energy. Interrupting that could cause a catastrophic collapse." "Could," repeated, "but you don't know for sure because no one's tried it." "The risk is too great," explained. "The Guardian inside is the last of his kind. If we make a mistake, he dies. Better to leave him in stasis until we truly understand the technology." Looked back at the pod. "How long are you going to wait? Another 1,000 years? Another 10,000? That's not stasis anymore, that's just a tomb." Didn't respond immediately. He studied with those large dark eyes, and for a moment the human mechanic thought he might have said too much. "You are new here," finally said. "You do not understand what we have tried, what we have lost in the attempts, but I appreciate your directness. It is very human." "Is that a compliment?" asked. "I have not decided yet," replied, and then he walked away. Grabbed his arm and pulled him toward the exit. "Come on, we have actual work to do." As they left the museum, looked back at the frozen Guardian one more time. Something about the pod bothered him, something he couldn't quite name yet. It wasn't just the challenge of opening it. It was something else, something in the way the energy moved. Later that night, after his shift ended, found himself back at the museum. The lights were dimmed for station night cycle, and the museum was empty except for 2 guards. He walked up to the pod again, this time with his scanner in hand. He spent an hour taking readings, studying the energy patterns, comparing them to other systems he knew. And then he saw it. The energy wasn't just maintaining the stasis field. It was being drained. Slowly, very slowly, but definitely draining. The pod wasn't keeping the Guardian frozen anymore. It was killing him, one molecule at a time. Pulled out his communicator and called. "What?" she answered, her voice heavy with sleep. "That stasis pod," said. "It's not working right. The field is trying to drain him, not preserve him." "What are you talking about, and where are you?" "I'm at the museum. I think I can fix this." There was a long pause. "No, don't even think about it." "I'm already thinking about it," he said, "and I'm going to do more than think." He ended the call and looked up at the frozen Guardian. "Don't worry, big guy," he said quietly. "I've fixed worse." The next morning, stood in front of the stasis pod with his toolbox, a roll of thermal tape, and a bottle of beer. Around him, a crowd had gathered. Word had spread fast that the crazy new human mechanic was going to try opening the Guardian's pod. Stood to his left, looking stressed. "This is a terrible idea. You're going to get yourself killed, or worse, you're going to get us both fired." "Have some faith," said, taking a drink. "Faith? 127 attempts by the people in the galaxy have failed. 3 of those attempts caused explosions. What makes you think you can do this?" "Because I'm not trying to understand it perfectly," replied. "I'm just trying to fix it." Commander arrived with a group of scientists. They looked worried and curious at the same time. Behind them came the station's head of security. He was a large human with a shaved head and a permanent frown. "I should stop this," said two. "Perhaps," replied, "but I am curious. Let us see what happens." "People could die," argued. "People could also be saved," said, looking at the frozen Guardian. "We have kept him in that pod for long enough. Maybe it is time someone tried something different." More aliens arrived. Some were scientists with scanners and equipment. Others were just curious station workers. An elderly, a species known for their advanced technology, pushed through the crowd. "This is foolishness," they announced. "Humans are a young species. You barely have faster-than-light travel. You think you can solve what we could not." Looked at yeah, pretty much. The scales turned a darker shade of red, a sign of anger. "Arrogant child, you will fail and possibly damage the Guardian beyond repair." "Maybe," admitted, "but doing nothing is definitely killing him. I scanned the pod last night. The energy field is draining him slowly. He's got maybe 100 years left before there's nothing to wake up." This caused a stir among the scientists. Several of them began checking their own equipment, arguing in different languages. Arrived then, running through the crowd. She was a young human doctor with short hair and a medical bag. "I heard what's happening. If you're actually going to open that thing, you'll need medical standing by." "Thanks," said. She stood next to, and the two women exchanged worried looks. Turned back to the pod. He had studied it all night, cross-referencing the energy patterns with every system he knew. The stasis technology was incredibly advanced, but underneath all the complexity, it was still just a machine, and machines followed patterns. He pulled out a small device from his toolbox. It was a magnetic loop, the kind used for resetting ship computers. "First, we need to bypass the quantum locks." "That is impossible," one of the scientists said. "The quantum encryption has 14 layers." "Right, but they all connect through the same power relay," said, attaching the magnetic loop to a specific point on the pod's base. "So if we create a magnetic field at the right frequency, we can make the system think the locks are already open." He activated the loop. The pod's hum changed slightly. Several scientists gasped. "It is working," said quietly. "Move to the next step." He pulled out a set of jumper cables from a nearby cargo loader. They were thick industrial cables meant for jump-starting large machinery. "You cannot be serious," the scientist said. "Dead serious," replied. He attached one end of the cables to a power port on the wall and studied the pod's control panel. "The problem is that the pod is trying to maintain stasis while also draining energy. It's stuck in a feedback loop. We need to give it an external power boost while simultaneously rerouting its internal systems." "That could cause an overload," warned. "Yeah, it could," agreed. "That's why we're going to do it really fast." He connected the other end of the jumper cables to 3 different points on the pod, bypassing the normal power channels. The pod's hum grew louder. Energy patterns started moving faster across its surface. "The containment field is destabilizing," a scientist announced, checking his scanner. "Good," said. "That's what we want." He pulled out his wrench next. It was an old tool, well used, with tape around the handle. Everyone stared as he approached the pod with it. "What are you going to do with that?" asked. "Percussive maintenance," replied. "Percussive what?" "I'm going to hit it." The crowd erupted in protests. Scientists shouted warnings, moved forward like he was going to physically stop, but raised a hand and everyone quieted. "Let him finish," the commander said. Found a specific spot on the pod's side, about 3 feet from the ground. He had noticed last night that this spot showed a different resonance frequency than the rest of the structure. He tapped it lightly with the wrench, listening to the sound it made. "These things are all the same, just bigger," he muttered to himself. Then he wound up and hit the spot hard with the wrench. The impact rang through the museum hall. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the pod's hum changed again, this time becoming almost musical. The energy patterns that had been moving chaotically suddenly synchronized. "By the ancestors," breathed. Hit the spot again, then a third time, each strike timed precisely to the new rhythm of the pod. With each hit, the energy field became more stable and more focused. "It is working," said, her medical scanner already active. I'm detecting life signs inside the pod, weak but there. Set down the wrench and return to the control panel. His hands moved quickly, adjusting settings and rerouting power. I need you to monitor the external power flow. When I say cut, you cut the jumper cables. Ran to the power port, her hands on the cables. Ready. Everyone else stepped back, ordered, just in case. The crowd moved backward, ushered the scientists to a safe distance. Stayed close, her medical bag ready. Made one final adjustment on the control panel. The entire pod began to vibrate. The crystalline structure started to crack, not breaking but separating, following lines that hadn't been visible before. Now, yanked the jumper cables free. Sparks flew from the power port and the lights in the museum dimmed for a moment. The pod's vibration increased, and then with a sound like breaking ice, it split open. Cold mist poured out, filling the air with a frozen fog. Through the mist, everyone could see movement. Something large shifted inside the pod. Then a hand emerged, a massive four-fingered hand that grabbed the edge of the pod. Another hand followed, then a third and fourth. The figure pulled itself forward and out of the pod, collapsing to its knees on the museum floor. It was the Guardian, the last of the. His chest heaved as he drew his first breath in 1,358 years. His eyes opened, revealing bright amber irises that seemed to glow in the dim light. Rushed forward with her medical scanner. He's alive. Vital signs are weak but stabilizing. His head turned slowly, taking in his surroundings. He saw the crowd of aliens, the strange station, the lights and technology he didn't recognize. His eyes found the small human standing there with a wrench in one hand and a beer in the other. The Guardian tried to speak, but no sound came out at first. His throat was too dry, his body too weak. Quickly gave him water, and after a moment he tried again. Where? His voice was deep and rough. Where am I? You're on Meridian 7, said, stepping forward. You have been in stasis for over 1,300 years. We thought you were lost forever. Looked at his hands, flexing his forearms slowly. 1,300 years. Yes, confirmed. Your species though they are. Gone, finished. I can feel it. I am alone. The museum fell silent. Even the scientists stopped their excited chatter. They all understood what it meant to be the last of your kind. Stepped forward and held out his bottle. Here, you look like you could use this. Stared at the offered drink, then at the strange human who had freed him. You did this. You opened the pod. Yeah, said with a shrug. Wasn't that hard, really. 3 days after his revival, sat in the medical bay looking at a holographic display. It showed star maps, historical records, and images of his people. Had helped him access the station's database, and for 3 days he had done nothing but read and learn about everything he had missed. They were gone. The war he had fought in was ancient history, studied by scholars as a cautionary tale. The enemies he had battled were also extinct or evolved into peaceful civilizations. The galaxy he knew had completely changed. Checked his vital signs for the 5th time that day. You need to rest, she said. Your body is still recovering from the stasis. I have rested for 13 centuries, replied, his voice still rough. I do not need more rest. I need purpose. Purpose comes later, said firmly. Right now you need to heal. Looked down at his 4 hands. They trembled slightly, still weak from the long sleep. He was 8 feet tall, built for war, but right now he felt fragile. What purpose can there be? My people are gone. My war is over. I am a weapon with no battle to fight. Before could respond, the door to the medical bay opened. Walked in carrying a toolbox and eating something that looked like a sandwich. Followed behind him, carrying a data pad as always. How's the big guy doing? Asked. He is recovering well physically, said. Emotionally, that is harder to measure. Stood up, his full height making even the tall medical bay feel smaller. He looked down at, who barely reached the center of his chest. I have asked to speak with you. Yeah, what about? Took another bite of his sandwich. I wish to understand, said. The scientists tell me that for 1,300 years, the greatest minds in the galaxy tried to open my pod. They used advanced technology and deep understanding of ancient systems. All failed, but you succeeded. How? Shrugged, I didn't overthink it. That cannot be all, insisted. They have intelligence far beyond most species. They have technology that spans. Surely they did not simply overthink the problem. Stepped forward. Actually, he's right in a way. I've been analyzing what did. The other attempts all tried to understand the stasis technology completely before attempting to disable it. They wanted to know exactly what would happen with each step. That seems wise, said. It is wise, agreed. But it also meant they never tried anything unless they were certain of the outcome. And with technology that old, that advanced, certainty is impossible. So they did nothing. I just saw patterns, explained. The way energy flowed through the pod reminded me of an old combustion engine. The quantum locks worked like a computer system stuck in a boot loop. The whole thing was basically a really complicated machine that was broken. So I fixed it like I'd fix any other broken machine. Sat back down slowly. You did not need to understand it completely. You only needed to understand it enough. Exactly, said, pointing at him with what remained of his sandwich. Sometimes knowing too much makes you afraid to try anything. Better to just try something and see what happens. That sounds dangerous, observed. Oh, it definitely is, confirmed. This idiot could have killed himself and you and everyone in the museum. He just got lucky. It wasn't luck, protested. It was educated guessing. Same thing, shot back. Despite everything, found himself almost smiling. These humans argued like old warriors, comfortable with each other in a way that spoke of deep friendship. Your species is strange, he said. You achieve the impossible through recklessness. Not recklessness, corrected. Optimism. We think things will work out, so we try, and sometimes they actually do work out. Over the next few days, spent more time with the humans. Showed him around the station, explaining how things worked. Taught him about current technology and politics. Helped him understand the medical advances that had occurred since his time. Taught him about station security protocols. A human diplomat named Jin also arrived from Earth's embassy station. He was older, maybe 50, with gray hair and a calm manner. He came to the medical bay to officially welcome on behalf of humanity. We're honored to meet you, Jin said. They were legendary warriors. Your people's sacrifice ended a war that could have destroyed dozens of civilizations. My people are gone, said quietly. There is no honor in being the last. Perhaps, Jin replied, but there is honor in surviving, and now that you're here, there's honor in choosing what comes next. What can come next for a weapon without a war? Jin smiled. You're not a weapon, you're a person. What you were built for and what you choose to be are different things. Humans understand that. We were apes throwing rocks once. Now we travel between stars, we changed. So can you. These words stayed with. That night he stood in the observation deck of the station, looking out at the stars. They were different from how he remembered them. Constellations had shifted over the centuries. New stations and ships moved through space. Everything was different. Found him there, 2 bottles of beer in hand. He offered one to, who took it carefully. His large 4-fingered hand made the bottle look tiny. Can't sleep, asked. I have slept enough for several lifetimes, replied. He tried drinking the beer. It was strange but not unpleasant. May I ask you something? Sure. Why did you help me? You did not know me. You risked your life and your career. Why? Was quiet for a moment, looking out at the stars. I guess I just thought you deserved better than being a museum display. You're a person, not an artifact. Everyone talked about how impossible it was to wake you up, but no one was asking if it was right to leave you sleeping. That bothered me. Most species would not have cared, said. Yeah, well, humans are weird that way, replied. We have this stupid idea that everyone deserves a chance, even if it's difficult or dangerous to give them one. It's caused us a lot of problems over the years, but it's also led to some good things. They stood in silence for a while, drinking their beers and watching the ships come and go from the station. Thought about his people, about the war, about everything he had lost. But he also thought about these strange humans who had given him a second chance. Your species frightens the others, said suddenly. I have heard the talking. They find humans unpredictable and dangerous. Yeah, we get that a lot, admitted. They are right to be frightened, continued, but not for the reasons they think. Humans are dangerous not because you are aggressive or violent. You are dangerous because you refuse to accept limitations. You look at the impossible and think, why not try anyway? That is a powerful and terrifying thing. Is that a compliment? Asked. I have not decided yet, said, echoing's words from their first meeting. Laughed, fair enough. The next day, asked to see his old armor and weapons. They were stored in the museum, locked away in separate cases. Escorted him to the storage area personally. The armor was massive, designed for his four-armed frame. It was dark blue metal with silver accents, covered in symbols from his people's language. The weapons included 2 energy rifles and 4 combat blades. We preserved them as best we could, said, but the power cores degraded centuries ago. They are no longer functional. Touched the armor gently. It had been with him through countless battles, had saved his life more times than he could count. Now it was just metal and memories. Can they be repaired? He asked. No, said sadly. The technology is too old. We do not have the materials or knowledge to restore power cores. Then I truly am finished as a guardian, said. A warrior without weapons or armor is just a person. Would that be so bad? Asked, being just a person. Before could answer, alarms began blaring throughout the station. Red lights flashed in the corridors. His communicator crackled to life. Commander, we have a situation, his voice came through. We're receiving a transmission from a fleet. They're demanding we turn over the Guardian. They say they're coming to take him by force if we refuse. In locked eyes, the commander's face was grave. How long do we have? 3 days, replied, maybe less. His hands clenched into fists. He had been awakened for only a week, and already war was following him again. The command center of Meridian 7 was filled with worried voices. Stood at the central display, watching the data stream in. 5 warships were approaching, their weapons powered and ready. The Dominion was known for 3 things: military strength, territorial expansion, and collecting ancient weapons technology. They want him as a research subject, said, his voice tight with anger. They want to study genetics to understand how his people became such effective warriors. Can't we ask for help? Asked. The Unity Council or Earth's fleet. The nearest Unity Council ships are 4 days away, reported. Earth's fleet is even farther. We're on our own. Stood near the back of the room, his large frame making him impossible to ignore. I will not let others die for me. I will surrender myself to the... No, said immediately. This station is neutral territory. They have no legal right to make demands here. If we give in to this, we set a dangerous precedent. Then people will die fighting a battle that is not theirs, argued. It became our battle the moment we chose to help you, replied. We do not abandon people here. That is what makes us different from the... Had been quiet until now, leaning against a wall and thinking. What kind of defenses does this station have? Minimal, admitted. We're a civilian station. We have shields that can hold for maybe an hour against that kind of firepower. We have 6 defensive turrets that are mostly meant to deal with small pirates or debris. Against 5 warships, we might as well be throwing rocks. Great, muttered. What about evacuation? Already, said. We're loading civilians onto transports, but it will take time. They will be here before we can evacuate everyone. Looked at, what about you? Can you fight? I am trained for combat, replied, but I am weak from stasis. My armor does not work. My weapons have no power. I am just, he paused, struggling with the words, I am just flesh. The room fell into defeated silence. The situation seemed hopeless. A civilian station with weak defenses, a legendary warrior without his equipment, and an enemy fleet that outmatched them in every way. Then spoke up, his gear is broken, right, so we fix it. Everyone turned to look at him. Fix it how? Asked. Just said the technology is too old, we don't have power cores. So we use human power cores, said. We retrofit the armor with our technology. That is impossible, said. And human technology are completely different. The systems would not be compatible. They weren't compatible in the stasis pod either, pointed out. That didn't stop me. His eyes widened. Wait, you're serious? You want to jury-rig 1,300-year-old alien armor with current human technology? Yeah, why not, said. We've got, 72 hours, that's enough time. Enough time to do it properly or enough time to make it explode? Asked. Honestly, could go either way, admitted, but it's better than doing nothing. Stepped forward. You believe you can restore my armor? Nah, said with a grin. I'm going to upgrade it. The next 3 days were chaos. Assembled a team of human engineers and convinced several alien scientists to help, though most of them thought the entire project was insane. They moved armor and weapons to a large cargo bay and turned it into a workshop. Took charge of the technical analysis, mapping out the armor systems and figuring out where human technology could be integrated. Studied biology to make sure the modifications wouldn't harm him. Jin worked on evacuation plans and sent messages to nearby fleets, hoping someone would arrive in time to help. Worked directly on the armor, his hands constantly moving, welding, wiring, and testing. He pulled power cores from shuttles, capacitors from mining equipment, and shield generators from cargo ships. Everything was scavenged, borrowed, or stolen from other station systems. This is insane, one scientist said, watching attach a human power core to ancient systems. The energy output is completely wrong. The power core will overload. So we'll add a regulator, said, not looking up from his work. You cannot simply add a regulator. The interface protocols are incompatible. Then we'll make them compatible, replied, using his plasma torch to cut into the armor's internal systems. The scientist threw up his hands and walked away. But he came back an hour later with suggestions, and by the end of the day, he was working alongside the humans. Watched the work from a platform above the cargo bay. He had never seen anything like it. The humans worked with an intensity that reminded him of his own people before battle. They argued constantly, disagreed on methods, and sometimes seemed to be making up solutions as they went. But they never stopped. On the second day came to the workshop with bad news. They sent another message. They're accelerating their approach. We've got maybe 48 hours now, not 72. Then we work faster, said simply. You need to sleep, told him. You've been awake for 30 hours. I'll sleep when we're done. By the end of the second day, the armor was taking shape. It looked different now, rougher and less elegant than the original. Human power cores sat where cores had been. Earth-made shield generators were bolted to the sides. The energy weapons had been rewired with human capacitors and battery packs. It looks wrong, said, seeing his armor transformed. It looks functional, corrected. Try it on. Putting the armor on was a slow process. It had been designed for specifically, but now it was heavier with all the added human technology. Each of his 4 arms slid into place, and the armor locked around his torso and legs. The helmet settled over his head, and the internal displays flickered to life. Everything felt wrong, too. The weight distribution was different. The power flowed in strange patterns. The displays showed information in formats he didn't understand, but when he moved, the armor moved with him. When he activated the shields, they hummed to life. When he raised one of the energy weapons, the targeting system activated. "How does it feel?" asked. "Strange," admitted, "but powerful." Walked around him, checking connections and testing systems. The power cores are from Earth shuttles, so they've got more output than your originals. The shields are meant for cargo ships, so they can take a lot of hits but recharge slowly. The weapons are hybrid now, mixing your energy systems with our ballistics. Nothing is elegant, it's all just functional. "Will it work in combat?" asked. "Honestly, I have no idea," said. "We'll find out when they get here." On the third day, pulled aside for a private conversation. They went to a small training room where could practice moving in his modified armor. "I need to teach you something," said. "Your people fought with honor, right? Warrior codes and fair combat." "Yes," confirmed. "They believed in honorable battle." "Right, well, humans don't always do that," explained. "I mean, we can fight with honor when we need to, but mostly we fight to win. And when you're trying to win, honor can get in the way." "You want me to fight dishonorably?" sounded uncertain. "I want you to fight smart," corrected. "They are going to expect you to fight like a warrior. They've probably studied your people's tactics, so surprise them. Fight like a human instead." "And how do humans fight?" Grinned, "We cheat." He spent the next several hours teaching what he called practical combat. Use the environment, attack from unexpected angles. Don't give the enemy time to predict your moves. If something works, keep doing it. If something doesn't work, try something else immediately. "Your armor is going to malfunction," warned. "It's held together with welds and prayer, but when it malfunctions, that's not always bad. A shield that explodes when hit too hard, that's a bomb. A weapon that fires at irregular intervals, that's unpredictable. Use the chaos." Practiced for hours, getting used to the modified armor and the new fighting style. It felt wrong at first, like betraying everything he had been taught, but he was starting to understand what made humans dangerous. They didn't fight the way you expected. They adapted constantly. They turned weaknesses into advantages. That evening, the fleet arrived. 5 massive warships dropped out of faster-than-light travel at the edge of the system. They were dark and angular, covered in weapons. Each ship was 3 times the size of Meridian 7. Received their transmission in the command center. The commander appeared on screen, a tall figure covered in black armor. His face was hidden behind a helmet. "Surrender the Guardian," the commander demanded. "You have 1 hour to comply or we will take him by force." "This is neutral territory," replied calmly. "You have no authority here." "We have 5 warships," the commander said. "That is all the authority we need." The transmission ended. The countdown had begun. The hour passed too quickly. Most of the civilians had been evacuated, but several hundred people remained on Meridian 7. They couldn't leave. The station was their home, their workplace, their life. Had given them the choice to stay or go, and these people had chosen to stay. Stood in the main cargo bay, fully armored. Around him, made last-minute adjustments while checked power readings. Stood nearby with medical equipment just in case. Coordinated with station security, preparing what little defense they could manage. "The shields will hold for maybe 20 minutes, reported. "After that, they'll break through and board us. That's when you'll need to fight." "Where will they board?" asked, his voice echoing through the armor's speakers. "Probably here in this cargo bay," said. "It's the largest open space, easiest to secure once they control it. We've pulled back all non-essential personnel. It'll just be you, me, and a few security teams." "And me," added. "No," said firmly, "you are not a soldier." "I'm the only one who knows how to fix your armor when it breaks," pointed out. "And it will break, I promise you that." Before could argue, Jin's voice came over the station-wide speakers. "Attention Meridian 7, the fleet is opening fire." The first impacts shook the station. Could feel the vibrations through the floor. The station's shields flared outside, visible through the cargo bay's large windows. Each hit from the weapons lit up the shields like lightning. Shields at 80%, reported, watching her data pad. 75%, they're hitting us hard. Jin had set up cameras throughout the cargo bay and was broadcasting everything, not just to the station but to the entire galaxy. If we're going down, he had said, the whole galaxy is going to watch. They'll see what the really are. The bombardment continued for 15 minutes. The shields dropped steadily, 60%, 40%, 20%. Then, with a final massive explosion, they failed completely. Shields down, announced. They're moving in to board. Through the windows, everyone could see the boarding craft detaching from the warships. They were smaller ships, shaped like spears, designed to pierce station hulls and deliver troops inside. "Here they come," said, his weapon ready. The first boarding craft hit the cargo bay's outer door with a terrible screech of metal. The door held for a moment, then blew inward. Air rushed out before emergency force fields activated, sealing the breach. Through the smoke and debris, soldiers poured into the cargo bay. They were big, almost as big as, wearing heavy combat armor and carrying plasma rifles. There were dozens of them, trained and organized, moving with military precision. And his security team opened fire immediately. Their weapons were standard station security gear, meant for crowd control and small threats. Against military armor, they barely left marks. "Pull back," shouted to his team. "Let him handle this." Stepped forward into the center of the cargo bay. They saw him immediately. Their commander, the same one from the transmission, pointed at and barked orders in the language. The soldiers surrounded in a tactical formation. They expected a warrior, a legendary guardian who would fight with ancient techniques and honorable combat. They were about to learn that things had changed. Activated his shields. They flared to life with a bright blue glow, much brighter and louder than they should have been. The human shield generators were more powerful but less stable than the originals. One of the soldiers fired at him, testing his defenses. The shot hit the shield and the shield held. Then it overcharged. Energy surged through the system, and the shield exploded outward in a massive pulse. 3 soldiers were thrown backward, their armor smoking. "Told you," muttered from his cover position. "When it breaks, it's a weapon." Didn't wait. He charged forward with his 4 arms, moving faster than the expected. His modified armor was heavy, but the human power cores gave it raw strength. He grabbed one soldier with 2 arms and threw him into 2 others. They crashed into a cargo container hard enough to dent it. His energy weapons came online, but they didn't fire smoothly. The human capacitors released energy in bursts rather than steady streams. Fired at a group of soldiers, and the weapon sputtered, releasing 3 quick shots instead of 1. All 3 hit different targets. The irregular firing pattern made him impossible to predict. Adaptability, thought, remembering lessons. Use the chaos. A soldier tried to flank him. Spun faster than his armor should allow, the human power cores responding to his movements with minimal delay. He hit the soldier with one of his combat blades. The blade was ancient technology, but it was powered now by human battery packs. It cut through the soldier's armor like paper. More poured in from the second boarding craft. The commander was shouting orders, trying to coordinate his troops, but wasn't fighting like a traditional warrior. He used the cargo containers for cover. He attacked from unexpected angles. When his shield recharged, he let it overcharge again and used the explosion to clear space around him. One of his weapons overheated and sparked. Instead of stopping to fix it, threw it at a cluster of soldiers. The power core inside it exploded on impact, adding to the chaos. "Beautiful," said, watching from behind a control panel. "He's learning." But there were too many. For every soldier disabled, 2 more entered the bay. They were starting to coordinate better, using their numbers to overwhelm him. A plasma bolt got through his defenses and struck his armor's side. The armor held, but barely. Warning lights flashed inside his helmet. "He's taking damage," reported, watching her medical scanner. "His armor can't take much more." And his security team were still firing, trying to help, but they were pinned down. They had brought heavy weapons now, massive rifles that could punch through the cargo containers. Felt his strength fatting. The stasis had weakened him more than he wanted to admit. The modified armor was falling apart around him. One of his power cores was failing, sparking and smoking. His shields wouldn't recharge anymore. This was the end, he thought. He would fall here just as his people had fallen centuries ago. Then did something crazy. He ran out from cover, his toolbox in one hand and his wrench in the other. Down. Dropped to one knee without questioning. Slid across the floor and somehow ended up behind him. He popped open an access panel on the armor's back and started working, while plasma fire filled the air around them. "What are you doing?" shouted. "Fixing you," shouted back. "The left power core is dying. I'm rerouting everything to the right core. It'll overload, but it'll give you one good push." "That will destroy the core." "Yeah, probably, but right now we need power, not safety." His hands worked with impossible speed. He bypassed safety systems, rerouted power flows, and did something with his wrench that made no technical sense but somehow worked. The armor suddenly hummed with new energy, much more than it should have. "You've got maybe 2 minutes before this all explodes," warned. "Make them count." Stood up, feeling the power surging through his armor. It was too much, unstable, dangerous, but it was enough. He roared, the sound amplified by his armor's speakers, and charged forward one final time. He moved like a storm. His remaining weapons fired continuously, overheating but not caring. He grabbed soldiers and threw them into each other. When his last blade broke, he used his armored fists. The overloaded power core made him faster, stronger, more dangerous than they had ever imagined possible. The commander finally understood. This wasn't a warrior fighting with ancient honor. This was something new, something unpredictable. This was human innovation combined with alien strength, and it was terrifying. "Retreat," the commander ordered. "Fall back to the ships." The soldiers began pulling back, dragging their wounded with them. They scrambled through the breached door and back to their boarding craft. Within minutes, the cargo bay was empty except for the human team and a lot of damaged equipment. His armor sparked and smoked. Warning alarms blared inside his helmet. Then, just as predicted, the overloaded power core gave one final surge and died completely. The armor locked up and collapsed to his knees, unable to move. Ran to him and started emergency shutdown procedures. "Don't worry, I've got you. Help me get this armor off before it cooks him." Together, they removed the smoking armor piece by piece. Emerged, exhausted and weak but alive. Through the cargo bay windows, they could see the fleet pulling away, their boarding craft returning to the warships. "They're leaving," said, disbelief in his voice. "They're actually leaving." His voice came over the communicators. "The commander just sent a transmission. He says the risk is too high. He called humans too chaotic to be worth the cost." Jin appeared on the cargo bay's screens, his face tired but smiling. "I've been broadcasting everything. The entire galaxy just watched a legendary warrior enhanced with human technology defeat a boarding party. We're getting messages from everywhere. Some are scared, some are impressed, but everyone is talking about it." Sat on the cargo bay floor, his massive chest heaving with exhaustion. He looked at, who was drinking a beer again despite the chaos around them. "You saved me," said, "again." "Nah," replied. "You saved yourself, I just gave you the tools." "The armor is destroyed," observed, looking at the smoking pieces scattered around them. "Yeah, but we can rebuild it," said. "Better this time, now that we know what works." Came over to check's injuries. You're going to be sore for weeks, but you'll live. I will do more than live, said, looking at each of the humans around him. You gave me purpose again. You showed me that even ancient things can have new life, new meaning. So what now? Asked. The might come back. Then we will be ready, said. He looked at. If you will have me, I would like to stay here, to help protect this station, to work alongside you. Extended his hand. We'd be honored. Took the hand carefully with one of his 4 hands, mindful of his strength. I have one condition. What's that? Asked. Looked at. He must continue to maintain my armor. I do not trust anyone else to make sense of the chaos he has created. Laughed. Deal, but you're buying the beer from now on. Over the following weeks, Meridian 7 became famous. The story of the human mechanic who woke an ancient guardian and then upgraded his armor with jury-rigged human technology spread across the galaxy. Some species were worried about what humans could do with access to ancient technology. Others were impressed. A few even asked for help with their own problems. Adjusted to his new life, he trained with learning station security procedures. He studied with understanding more about modern technology. He drank with learning about human culture and philosophy. He discovered that being the last of his kind didn't mean being alone. He had found a new family, a new purpose, a new way forward. The armor was rebuilt, better designed this time but still incorporating the chaotic mix of ancient technology and modern human engineering. It worked better than the first version, though it still required constant maintenance. Didn't mind. He enjoyed the challenge. One evening, several months after the attack, stood in the observation deck with. They watched ships come and go from the station, a peaceful scene that still felt strange to the ancient warrior. Your species saved me twice, said. Once from the stasis pod and once from the, I owe you a debt I can never repay. You don't owe us anything, said, taking a drink. You fought for the station, that makes us even. No, insisted. What you gave me cannot be measured in battles or victories. You gave me hope. You showed me that the universe still has room for old warriors like me. Was quiet for a moment, then held out his beer bottle. To new beginnings. Touched his own bottle to new beginnings, and to humans who are crazy enough to say, hold my beer, before attempting the impossible. That's what we do best, agreed with a grin. Below them, the station continued its work, a place where dozens of species came together in peace. And watching over it all was an ancient guardian who had learned that sometimes the best way forward was the human way. Try something crazy, see what happens, and never accept that anything is truly impossible. The galaxy had learned an important lesson. Never underestimate humans, especially when they're holding a beer and a wrench, because that's when the real magic happens.